Mahfouz is featured. She's been married for 5 months. She is the main character of the story and the perpetrator of the most horrifying crime you could hear about. Imagine the first crime a person ever commits in their life being far bigger than they themselves expected. Kawthar Mahfouz is in the full story set in 2006, specifically on Wednesday, August 2nd. Kawthar, 19 years old and married for 5 months, was living with her husband Mahmoud in an apartment in one of the tallest residential towers in a summer area of Giza Governorate. Kawthar and Mahmoud met through family connections, and they loved and respected each other very much. You could also say that both families got along very well. Kawthar saw Mahmoud as a very respectable person with ambition to succeed, who owned his own factory and was very generous. This was evident from the first day of their marriage. Most importantly, both of them were religiously committed. In general, Kawthar's relationships with people were simple and limited. Even with the neighbors in their tower, interactions were minimal, and she barely spoke to anyone. But her problem was that when she trusted someone too much, she would reveal full details of her life to them. On that Wednesday, August 2nd, her husband Mahmoud went to his factory in the morning like every day. Kawthar left the apartment at 12 p.m. to go to the market to buy some necessities and planned to return by 1 p.m. However, she remembered she had forgotten a few items. So, she called the building guard and asked him to bring the missing items up to her apartment on the 7th floor. The guard went, while Kawthar took the elevator to the 7th floor. After half an hour, the guard returned with the items and knocked on Kawthar's apartment door multiple times, but there was no answer or sound from inside. He waited 5 minutes, then decided to leave the items at her door and go, as he had other work. Mahmoud returned from work at his usual time around 5 p.m. When the elevator door opened on the 7th floor, he found the bags the guard had brought still outside the apartment door. He took the items, very upset with his wife for leaving them outside, and searched for Kawthar throughout the apartment. She was nowhere to be found. He then went down to ask the building guard about Kawthar. The guard told him that she had come at 1 p.m., asked for some items, and when he knocked, she didn't open, so he left the items outside. Mahmoud was certain that Kawthar would never leave the apartment without telling him, as she had told him she was going to the market in the morning, a normal errand she would do just once a day. What surprised him was the guard's statement, because he claimed to have seen Kawthar enter the building, but was unsure whether she had left afterward, as he went on several other errands. After an hour, Mahmoud went to search for her in places she might have gone. He called her family to ask about her. They were shocked and immediately went to her home to check and understand what had happened. They began searching everywhere she could have gone, with Mahmoud by their side all the time. Many neighbors also came down, shocked by the situation. By 10 p.m., after losing hope of finding Kawthar, Mahmoud and her family went to the police station to file a missing person report. They gave security personnel her photo, despite her wearing a niqab. Generally, missing person reports don't prompt immediate action until some time has passed. After 2 days, the authorities began collecting information, confirming that Mahmoud and Kawthar had a very good relationship, and their interactions with neighbors were positive with no conflicts. Mahmoud did not accuse anyone of being responsible for her disappearance. Among the information the authorities collected, Kawthar had a close relationship with only one neighbor, a woman named Zainab and her husband Mr. Reda, who worked as a barber. At the time, Zainab was away visiting her family as she was 1 month pregnant, so she wasn't in the building. By the 5th day, Kawthar was still completely missing. The criminal investigation team continued gathering information, but the report so far was just a disappearance. If her body or any evidence appeared, the nature of the report would change. Later, the authorities received a report from locals that human body parts had been found in the Mariotea Canal. The parts were incomplete, very small, and strange. Parts of a hand, a piece of abdominal skin, parts of fingers and toes. In the end, they were just small dismembered remains. They were human remains. The way the body had been dismembered was extremely strange to the locals. They reported it to the authorities, who immediately sent a forensic team to the crime scene where the remains were found. The remains were collected. It was clear that the body was incomplete, but they also found a niqab glove. After the forensic team finished their work, they lifted fingerprints found at the scene and transferred the remains and the glove to the forensic lab. The initial report indicated that the remains belonged to a woman aged between 17 and 20, and that she had been dead for more than 10 days. All missing person reports that matched these characteristics were examined. The authorities found a missing person report for a 19-year-old girl named Kawthar, living in Faisal. The only connection was that Kawthar wore a niqab, so there was a high probability that the remains belonged to her. After matching the fingerprints from the remains, they confirmed that it was indeed Kawthar's body. Mahmoud, her husband, was summoned, and the case shifted from a disappearance investigation to a murder investigation. A full investigation with Mahmoud began to ensure there were no issues between him and his wife, and to determine if he might accuse anyone of the crime. Mahmoud confirmed the same information as before. He had no conflicts with anyone and did not accuse anyone. Authorities then collected information on the neighbors, confirming that Kawthar had entered the building but had never left it. The neighbors were found to have no connection to the case. However, very important information emerged. Reda Ali Abdo, the husband of Zainab, who lived on the 7th floor, had acted unusually in the week surrounding Kawthar's disappearance. He first paid the overdue rent on his apartment for 3 months, then the overdue rent for his shop, also for 3 months. Authorities discovered that he had traveled to check on his wife and only child. Upon examination, they confirmed that Reda had financial problems and had been behind on rent for 3 months. The coincidence of paying all his debts at the exact time raised suspicion. Reda explained that a friend had repaid a loan to him, which allowed him to pay all his debts. This sounded logical, but authorities remained suspicious. Meanwhile, the forensic team continued searching for the remaining body parts because only small pieces had been found so far. Authorities suspected Reda's direct involvement in Kawthar's disappearance, so they obtained a warrant to search his apartment. When they arrived, they found him visibly nervous. Upon entering, they noticed blood in the bathtub and on the kitchen refrigerator. Continuing the search, they found a human leg bone on top of a cupboard and remnants of niqab clothing under the bed. At that moment, Reda collapsed and confessed to the authorities that he had killed Kawthar and revealed where he had disposed of other body parts in 3 different locations, besides parts flushed down the toilet. He began explaining the details to the authorities, allowing them to hear one of the most horrifying stories imaginable. Going back to Wednesday, August 2nd, Kawthar went to the market to buy supplies and, on her return, met the building guard, asking him to bring the items she had forgotten. She entered the building, took the elevator, and reached the 7th floor. This is where the story begins. Reda knew that Kawthar had a good relationship with his wife, and that she knew his wife was away visiting her family because she was pregnant and unwell. At the same time, Reda knew everything about Kawthar, including what she was wearing and how much money she had. He had been monitoring her closely and knew her exact schedule. On that day, when Kawthar arrived on the 7th floor and opened the elevator door, Reda opened his apartment and told her that Zainab, his wife, was feeling unwell and asked her to help. Trusting him, Kawthar entered the apartment and called out for his wife, but heard nothing. When she reached the bedroom, she realized Zainab wasn't there. Suddenly, Reda attacked her, grabbed her by the neck, and began choking her. Kawthar tried to defend herself but was no match for him. She didn't die immediately, but eventually fell to the ground. Reda sat calmly beside her body for 10 minutes, thinking about how to deal with it. His first step was to remove her jewelry, gold bracelets, a ring, and a wedding band, and take them. Then he dragged the body under the bed, covered it with multiple blankets, locked the apartment, and left for work. At work, he kept imagining Kawthar in front of him, asking why he was doing this, but it didn't affect him. He remained calm, determined to carry out his plan to get rid of his debts. Around 9 p.m., he returned home and saw Mahmoud, Kawthar's husband, her family, and several neighbors standing outside the building, visibly upset. He greeted them, tried to help a little, and then went back to his apartment to begin executing his plan. He removed the body from under the bed and took it to the bathroom. He decided to dispose of the body over several days, cutting it into very small pieces. He first went to the kitchen, got a knife, and cut off the arms and legs, wrapping them in cloth and placing them in the fridge. Then he prepared 3 large bags of water mixed with salt and submerged the body parts to prevent the smell from spreading. At 7 a.m. the next morning, he woke up from a nightmare, imagining Kawthar standing in front of him. He quickly reassured himself that the body was in the bathtub and locked the bathroom door before leaving for work. That day, he left work slightly earlier, the second day after Kawthar's disappearance, to continue his plan. He separated the head from the body, removed the chest and internal organs, cut the remains into very small pieces, and flushed them down the toilet multiple times to ensure they disappeared. He also separated the thigh bones completely. After working for about an hour and a half, he became exhausted and went to sleep, placing the remaining body parts in water and salt to prevent odor. On Friday, the third day after Kawthar's disappearance, he sold some of her gold, paid off his debts for the apartment and shop, and returned home to continue dismembering the body. He divided the large pieces into 5 large plastic bags and contacted a friend, asking for help to transport them, claiming that the meat in the fridge had spoiled while his wife was away. His friend believed him and came over with a car. Rita then disposed of the 5 bags containing large parts of Kawthar's body in 3 different locations: the Zumar Canal, the Mariotea Canal, and near the Faisal metro station. Afterward, he traveled to his hometown to check on his only daughter and gave his wife some money, repeating the same story about the returned loan from a friend. He also took more gold with him to sell, giving the proceeds to his wife before returning home. During the 2 days in his hometown, he monitored the news daily to see if the authorities had discovered anything. He felt confident that he had completely disposed of the body and that no evidence remained. To complete his plan without suspicion, he returned home, unaware that information had already begun to be gathered by authorities. Despite his calm demeanor, he confessed everything in detail to the authorities, even reenacting the crime. After the investigations and trials, he was sentenced to death, which is likely the minimum sentence for such a crime. No one should experience such tragedy. Kawthar had been married for only 5 months. Her husband, Mahmoud, the neighbors, and everyone searching for her could never have imagined that Reda had been calmly dismembering her while they were desperately looking for her. May God have mercy on Kawthar. This story serves as a lesson to all of us. We can never truly know someone's inner nature, what someone appears to be, what they possess, or what they are thinking. Only God truly knows the hearts of people. Peace be upon you. If you want, I can turn this part into a clear, professional audio narration.